Christian parenting.
This is Chrys and Shellie, and you're listening to Rocking It Grand.
Join us each week as we talk about leading the next generation with faith, purpose, and vision.
Hey folks, this is Shellie, and we're excited about visiting with you again today. I hope you enjoyed math in school, and if you didn't, I hope you can hang with a math session today. Chrys has brought us a topic that I think is really important, and we're going to use a few math skills to address it, Chrys. We're talking about how to add kids to our marriages without letting them subtract from the whole. So
That's right.
This is a cool conversation.
Well, I just love
us.
that. I like that idea because all of us took math in school, I think. I mean, you'd had to, I don't know where you'd been raised to not have taken math. And we all learned how to add and subtract. And it's so true that with anything in life, anything, if you add something, something will be subtracted from something else. That's just the nature of life, right?
Absolutely. That is so good. I had a friend one time that taught me, she taught a series that was really cool called Hurry Less, Worry Less. And one of the things she said all the time was with every yes, you're saying no to something else, which is really
That's
what
right.
you're bringing us today.
Exactly.
Every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Exactly.
So you just need to be intentional about that.
I remember thinking back at our businesses over the years, and you've probably done this as well, but we've owned several businesses over the years. And I remember noticing that anytime you added an employee, it didn't necessarily take away, but it definitely changed the dynamics of the whole group because you're adding a personality. Well, so today I just thought we would take some time to talk about when we add children to a marriage, there's a huge danger of subtracting from the marriage itself because you're adding these little people that have a lot of different personalities, depending on how many children you have. Shellie has 2 and I have 3. And you just have to have 2 to know that they're going to have a different personalities and add a different dynamic to your family structure. So I thought, well, we need to really talk about that. You and I are kind of way past that, but we might have some ideas that can help those of you out there now who are in the business of adding to your family and being mindful and careful to not subtract from the marriage because that marriage is the most important gift you give to your kids, the most important gift. And now, well into my married years and now grandparenting and great-grandparenting years, I look back at that, and there are times when I think I could have been stronger in that as our children were coming and taking over my life,
Because we're definitely, as you say, we're past the raising small children in our home stage. But when we say that we want to talk about this topic and bring some experience to it, it's because we both realize that life can get out of balance.
That's right.
So we're not saying, speaking to what you just said, we're not saying that we always did it right. We can look back and say, this is when this got out of balance and that got out of balance. And so from our experience, we have a few tips of how to recognize you're out of balance or how to stay out of balance.
That's right. And
stay in balance.
In balance. Yeah, the first one is exactly what I was just talking about. And that's really just recognizing that the marriage relationship, that 1 + 1, that one, that is the most important one. And that it's hard when you have a brand new baby. We've got new babies in our family right now. We've got John Shepherd is 1 year, Zane is 2. We've got a couple of pregnancies coming up. And there is that time for a year, about 18 months, where it's very difficult to focus on anything but that child. And that is natural. That is how God designed us to be. Those babies have to have a lot of attention. But in that, even in that time period, being mindful and aware that your relationship with your spouse is the most important relationship in the house, that will help you balance that out a little bit. And I think when I was a young mom, I was very young. I was 20 when I had Corey. And I remember going to Bible studies and mommy's groups and things like that where the women mentors that I was listening to were so good about helping me keep that in the front of my mind and helping me realize that my relationship with my husband, while our time is so consumed with this brand new baby, it has to be, but being mindful that my relationship with my husband is the most important
Right.
relationship.
And giving our children that foundation.
Mhm.
You know, Chris, I have another math idea or concept to toss in here. But before I do, I've got to tell you a funny story because you and I are about stories, and it just came to my mind. I was sitting in I think it was a Starbucks once, coffee shop of some sort. And so I was overhearing these men talking. I didn't intend to, but they were just right there and they were talking. And apparently, one of the men he and his wife had 3 children. And the other guy had 2 children and his wife was pregnant. And so they were so cute because the older guy was like mentoring the young one on what to expect with this new
With the third
child.
one, yeah.
And so the other guy says, the one that has 2, he says, well, I mean, right now I get it because like I have a child and when we go somewhere, she has one.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do when this other one gets here? And his friend said, let me see. Think of it as zone defense. I just fell out laughing. I mean,
That was
to
perfect for
myself,
you.
he said, with zone defense, it's just whoever comes in your area. And
Mhm.
he began to explain it in a way that his friend perfectly understood. Instead of man-on-man defense, if you're in a
Right.
basketball game, you play zone. He said, that's what it's like with that third child. You just play zone defense.
That is so true. That's really a great example. I love
I
that
love the way they
because
communicate.
Shelly and I are both all about basketball, and I really love that because I do understand a zone defense.
Uh-huh.
And when I'm thinking about that, this is funny. When you think about a zone defense, you get in your position, you stay in there, and the person you're guarding, if that person changes to the other zone, it's the other
The
person
other parent.
takes over.
So see, the other
So
parent picks up,
there
and
you
then someone
go.
wanders into your zone, and
There you
you tend to it. So
Yeah.
I thought he was spot on. But speaking to your math equation, here's another math problem that can come up with parenting. Don't let your kids divide you. And you were just speaking with just such
Mm.
wisdom about making sure that the husband and wife unit is strong and it's the foundation of the home. But we both know that kids can try to divide that.
Right.
I know when I was raising my own children, it was like a non-starter if one of my children, if I found out they were asking me a question they had already got a
Right.
no from Phil, and if I found out they were coming to me with that same question, I mean, it was not only no to what they were asking, it was punishment for
Right.
what they had just done because I wanted them to understand that you cannot come and divide us because in any parenting unit, there's going to be the parent that's more of a disciplinarian. It's just going to be that way. And the one that's a little bit, maybe not
Maybe
quite
more
as
fun.
strict
Yeah.
and more
Right.
fun, the fun parent. And
Yeah.
a child can, oh man, they can zone in on that
Mhm.
and they can expose that and they can use that to their advantage. And you don't want to let them do that for many reasons. And one is because that's manipulative and
That's
it's
right.
not a character trait that you're trying to encourage. So
Exactly.
don't let your kids manipulate you into dividing that all important duo.
And I'm telling you, if you have to say, "Excuse us, we need to have a visit,"
Yes.
you and your husband
Mm-hmm.
walk to the other room, close
Mm-hmm.
the door, and say, "Sweetie, we need to get on the same page with this." Johnny and I did this so many times
Mm-hmm.
when our kids were little because let me remind you, you both come out of different households, and how you were raised will come out differently when you start to raise your children. And the older they get, those things kind of come out. And so it's way to your benefit to not let your children see this undivided,
Mm-hmm.
whatever y'all are thinking about, your decision. It's better for you to go to the back and say, "Excuse us, kids." And you know what? It's actually kind of fun because the kids sit there and like,
They
okay,
wonder what's
what is happening?
now.
What are
Yeah.
they going to come out with? Maybe we should have left well enough alone, all those kinds of
And you
things.
don't have to give them an answer if you're not in a
Mm,
position where you can, go to the other room. If the
exactly.
situation doesn't allow that, then the child doesn't have to have an answer right then. It can be as important to say, you know what, Dad and I haven't discussed that. We're going to have to talk about that, and then we'll decide how to go forward, even if you can't do it right then.
Exactly. And let me just say this too, because if you are a grandparent listening to this, you are going to live this over again with your
Mm.
grandchildren as they get older. I remember a specific time, and all of my grandkids laugh about this, when I grounded the grandkids to my house. We have a very fun neighborhood, like their cousins all live in the neighborhood, and what they had done something that was not right. And the punishment was they had to stay at my house. They could
Mhm.
not go visit their cousins. It was
Mhm.
they were on lockdown. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, they carried on, and "You've never done this before too, mama," that's what they called me, and I said,
Mhm.
"Because you've never done that before," you know?
Absolutely.
And so, during I remember this, and my husband was like, "Wait, was that a little too harsh?" And I'm like, "Let's have a little conversation," because even as grandparents, we are gonna be called to disciple them, and whatever that means, to teach them how to be good human beings. And sometimes that's going to require that you do some tough love. And you're right now, if you've got a brand new grandbaby, you're probably thinking,
Oh, I
"Oh,
can't.
I can't."
But
But
yes, you
yeah,
can.
yeah, you can, and
Yes, you
you
can.
will be if you have your kids often. I had my grandkids nearly every day, so that required me to be alert to also raising them right.
And the same concept of dividing to conquer will come back into play because a grandchild will try to get you on their side, if you will, against maybe how their parents are rolling or a decision that their parents have made. This is something that you want to steer clear of. Now,
Exactly.
there's all kind of reasons that maybe you could have a conversation with a parent with that child not listening about, the topic at hand, but never with that child do you want to allow them to divide you from the parent. If the parent
Exactly.
has laid down a rule or, a ruling, you want to be in solidarity with that parent before that grandchild. So just be aware that they'll try to divide and conquer you if they're your own kids growing up. But then those precious little grandbabies that we just love with all our hearts will also try the same trick.
That's right, and I'm in full believer that grandma's house is a fun and great place to be,
Hmm.
but like Shelley said, we wanna be very mindful of the rules that the parents have set. Right now, our little John Shepherd is only 15 months old, but the minute he walks in my house, he wants a cookie because he knows right where they are. But I'm so mindful to ask Mary Kate first because I wanna be respectful of what she's already fed him, what rules she has for him, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's move on because we've got a few things. This is another one that's, boy, this one we've got to be so mindful and so careful over is don't get overextended in your kids' achievements.
Hmm.
Okay, that's a tough
Hmm.
one because our kids
Hmm.
are so active today in so many different things. Everything is available. I remember when I was a child begging my mother to take gymnastics, but it just wasn't available. Now it's so available. You can take gymnastics and cheer and violin and piano and be on the school's soccer team as well as voice lessons. I mean, there's so much available. And we can get overextended in helping our kids achieve everything
Hmm.
in life. And when that comes, again, that takes away from your marriage relationship because you're just so busy getting them to everything. Now, what are some things that we could do to make that easier? You can. One thing I did with my children is I teamed up with another mom who helped with lessons back and forth. So
Hmm.
it wasn't always my responsibility. There are so many other
I think you
ways.
you can be you can require them to make a choice. This is something that we really need to talk about because just because all these different lessons are out there, tennis lessons and basketball and
Mm,
football and
yes,
all these lessons are available to them does not mean that they need to participate in each one because it's going to drain from the family time that you're
exactly.
talking about. It's
Yes,
going to subtract from that family time. And so I think it's a very good idea to require them to make a choice
right.
to and for I know the grandchildren that live near me. So that's my son's little girls and little boy, and now Kennedy hasn't. It's not old enough to make a choice yet, but she will later. But as each season approaches, they have put this out to them. They can't take tennis lessons and softball and gymnastics in the spring. They have to make a choice so that it doesn't detract from the family unit.
That's right. That's such good advice. And it's you'll have those kids. You'll have a child who will want to play everything, and you
Hmm.
might have a child that you've got to encourage to play and do some things, some extra outside of school kind of things. So both ways, we just have to be mindful that we've got to save our family time that's so valuable to us.
Because, we talked early in this podcast, when you say no to one thing, you're saying yes to another, or vice versa.
Hmm.
When you say yes, you're saying no. So, as parents and grandparents, we need to realize that the more we say yes to them and let them be involved in all these different activities, the more we're limiting what we are doing. And that's a bad case scenario to set up, Chris, when we
Hmm.
do not have our own interest because we're allowing the children to suck all the time and the energy out of the home. Because as precious as they are, they won't always be there. Under your feet. And as just people and as just believers, that the Lord calls us to continue growing and continue learning. We don't want to be in a position where we have no interest because we put everything on hold when our kids were there.
Exactly. I follow a man named John Roseman, who is one of the leading
Wise.
parenting
Hmm.
wise men. If you've never followed him, look him up. But one thing that John always says for parents, for mothers and dads, is to stay interesting. Because
Yeah.
if we stay interesting, our children want to be a part of our life and know what we're doing.
Hmm.
It's when we get lost in the lives of our children and stop staying interesting ourselves that we begin to lose ourselves. And that doesn't mean you've got to have some grand thing going on. It just means, like we're saying, to have some interests that are your own that you can claim. And when your kids are at tennis, soccer, football,
Hmm.
whichever thing they've chosen, you have an interest too that you can share.
Because you're modeling how to do life,
That's right.
and if you do not continue to pursue these other things and be interesting and continue to learn, and at the expense of all of their activities, then what you're saying to them, even without words, is that life revolves around you, the world revolves around you,
Mm,
you are everything,
hmm.
it's all about you, and you're putting everything on hold for them, and you're not doing them a favor because they're going to step out of your home into a world that is not all about them.
That's right.
And they've got to be a part of that world and not think that they're always leading the band.
Yeah, that's right. Because kids are really notorious for wanting and getting all of the attention. And we are often real eager to give it to them, but it's
Mhm.
not something we want to set up for life for them because that's not the way real life works. We want our kids to be able to accept when they aren't the center of a spinning universe, but they are a part of it, doing a good job helping support it, helping good things happen in the world, all of that kind of thing.
It's a win-win. It's like
Mhm.
all of God's principles. It's a win-win when you don't when you don't set them up to think that they are, the center of the universe. Then you're helping yourself, you're helping them, and you are helping them fulfill the purpose that they're on the planet for in the first place.
Which kind of leads into the last thing that I want to talk about is to let them be independent. That's the thing. We are really working ourselves out of a job.
Hmm.
That's what it is as parents. And while it gets really sad about their junior year of high school and you're like, oh, it's almost over. I can't believe I did this. On the other hand, that's when the big pat on the back is, look, we did it. We've raised these kids. You and I, as a partnership, my husband and I have raised these kids and they're about to take on the world. And wow, can you believe we did that? But that is our goal. That is our job in life. We are not raising children. We're raising the next generation of adults who are going to carry on the world. So I think
Hmm.
if we approach everything in our parenting roles with that in the back of our mind, then that changes things. It's like, oh, wow, if I'm wanting this kid to one day be able to take care of himself, I guess he needs to know how to wash clothes and load the
Yes, I guess he
dishwasher.
needs some life
Yeah,
skills
some life
instead of
skills.
being dependent on me. And that will require a little bit of soul searching because we
Hmm.
all like to be needed and appreciated.
That's right.
And so you can fall into that trap of doing everything for them so that you are, your mom. I mean, you're it. Mom
Hmm.
does everything and you meet all those needs, but you're doing them a great disservice when you do because in order to feel needed, you're, feeding that by taking over all these responsibilities. That if you would just begin to cede a few to them, then you're going to enjoy the years to come. And if you don't, and if you insist on micromanaging everything and doing everything for them, then you're going to be helping to parent a child that is not going to be a blessing to you in the years ahead, because
Way
you're going
past-
to have a lot
yeah,
of problems.
Way past when you wanted to be doing that,
Absolutely.
and we wanted it to be back to you and your husband. Well, that's our show for the day. We hope we've said some things that will help you on your journey, told you some of our stories and our experiences, and we look forward to you being back with us the next time we're together.